Well, it's my pleasure to welcome back Gregory Stenstrom to the show. Welcome back, Mr.
Hi,
Stenstrom.
hi, Richard. How are you? Good morning.
Well, I think many of our audience know you already. You're a forensic investigator. You're author of The Parallel Election, which I highly recommend, which documented the election fraud in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. And but I think today we want to get into, look, all of us are looking forward to the 2024 election in, I don't know what's how many, it's in November, November 5th. And we, a lot of people have concerns about whether this will be a fair election or not, and what, if anything, can we do about it? So, take help us.
Take it away. I think the hot topic right now uh, by President Trump, he mentioned it in the New Jersey rally, and also the GOP and the DNC fighting about it, and this legislation and debate in Congress right now on mail-in ballots and no excuse mail-in ballots in particular, not the historical absentee ballots. So the problem we've got is illegal mail-in ballot voters. And whether they're illegal aliens or non-residents of the locale they're voting in, or just completely fictitious, they're all problems that can be overcome. People need to understand that you can register your dog or pet turtle to vote. Anybody can register to vote. So one of the things they're doing across the states is they're moving tens of thousands of illegal aliens from state to state and from locale to locale, and then they apply for licenses or assistance, and then they register to vote. And what people need to realize is one of the last places an illegal alien is on election day is in a voting booth. It's a felony, third-degree felony for a non-citizen to vote, and it will result, one of the penalties is permanent deportation. They cannot come back. Do not pass go. So you're going to find very few illegal aliens that are going to walk into a voting booth. A lot of places where they have law enforcement, there's poll watchers, they're checking IDs for first-time voters in most places. Contrary to popular belief, or what they're advocating is the loophole. You can't vote with the last four of your social security number. That's absurd. It's against federal, state, and most local laws. So the question here is illegal mail-in ballots. They're collecting names. They're collecting the people, and they're collecting signatures of people, or in some cases fabricating. These illegal aliens, non-residents, and fictitious voters aren't voting. They're being voted for. So one of the things that they circumvented over the last few years, since 2020, is that it is federal law and state law, and particularly Pennsylvania, I'll speak specifically about Pennsylvania, that before a mail-in ballot can even be sent out by a board of elections, they have to be verified. And so they have to be verified as not only citizens, but they have to be verified as residents. So there's a few checks that they must run. They have to run a thing called a have report. There's other things. They have to query the Social Security database, and they must verify their citizenship before they can send them a ballot. So what we found in Delaware County, and we also found this in Chester County, Fayette County, and other counties where they've installed centralized counting centers, what we found was that they were violating the law and sending out the mail-in ballots to unverified voters. This is a subject of judicial record and public record. The Delaware County Clerk of Elections, Maureen Hagan, and the Delaware County Director of Elections, Jim Allen, admitted that they sent out tens of thousands of mail-in ballots to unverified voters. And
Now,
what they
this is
said
in
was, well,
2020 or
no, just as they did it in 2020. They also did it in the most recent election. They did it in April of this year. They did it in November of last year. They did it in May of last year. They did it in November of 2022. 2022, we went before, I had a 9-hour hearing, and the election clerk of elections, Lorraine Hagan, said that she had been ordered by the solicitors and by the director of elections to mail out over 30,000 mail-in ballots to unverified voters. Matter of public record. It's a violation of federal law. So what we're doing, and we've developed an application for this that we'll be sharing more broadly. It's https:// mail-in ballot, mibdb.org, mibdb.org. And people are going to be able, we have 420,000 mail-in ballot envelopes. We have all of the mail-in ballot applications for the state of Pennsylvania for April of this year. And we can discern who's a qualified voter, they call it a qualified elector, and who is not. And what we can do is we're going to challenge them in this coming election. The last couple of elections, actually since 2020, every time we've put forward litigation, we put forward 42 lawsuits for a number of different things, whether it was mail-in ballot applications, pre-canvassing, large inaccuracy testing, recounts, and so forth. They've all been thwarted by just a handful of corrupt judges. And we're working through that. We're filing a federal lawsuit, actually 3 different federal lawsuits within the next 2 weeks after collecting all this evidence, which is going to allow us to make the boards of elections across the state of Pennsylvania, at least, and hopefully the rest of the country, they're going to have to allow us to pre-canvass and challenge mail-in ballot applications for unverified citizens. We're not going to allow them to do that. We're going to make them comply with federal law. So the illegal alien problem, non-residents and so forth, there's a solution for that. And the solution is just to follow the law. The other thing that we do is the reason they're able to introduce fraudulent code and uncertified code and uncertified machines is they do not correctly complete logic and accuracy testing. Logic and accuracy testing is done before each election to make sure each machine has valid code in it, and they're not doing it. And we've got documented this. We've filed multiple cases, and we've been thwarted at local levels, but we've collected this evidence, and we're going forward with federal suits, and we're going to get federal intervention on this. And there's a few other things that we're doing. The poll watchers, we're training poll watchers. And these poll watchers, they cannot interfere with the vote, but they can intervene as long as they know the law, and they can actually intervene and challenge a voter. And there's a number of different criteria for which they can challenge them. They can look at the blue book or when they sign in, and they can see, well, this person hasn't voted before, and they're required to present a photo ID. They can't produce a piece of mail. It's photo ID. They have to prove they are who they say they are, and they can't do it with a piece of mail, contrary to what's being put out. So poll watchers can make challenges at the polls. The other thing is recounts after the elections. In no case, none in the state of Pennsylvania has any election been reconciled. None. Reconciliation is producing a body, habeas corpus, produce the body for which this vote was created. Okay, and that's a reconciliation, and they can't do it. In Delaware County, they haven't done it since 2020. And of 428 precincts that we have here, in 2020, over 220 precincts of 428 could not be reconciled. There was no reconciliation at all. So these things are being brought to the court's attention, and we're going to litigate, and we're going to fight beforehand. And part of the reason I'm here today is to help educate people and say there is a way that we can stop these. There is a way to ensure fair and free elections. And all that is making the boards of election in your counties comply with federal and state law. So that's what I want people to know, that there's hope and that there's already procedures in place. We don't have to pass new legislation. We can even keep the machines. We're trying to stop them now and go to hand ballots. But the bottom line is, if we can make them comply with federal and state law, then we have a fair shot.
Now, you said before that you were able to obtain 24,000 mail-in ballot
Envelopes,
envelopes. Okay,
420,000
420 that for the state of Pennsylvania,
for Delaware County alone.
for Delaware County alone. Okay,
Yeah, and we
wow.
have that's going back to 2020, and we have people are submitting right to knows now that we're working with in other counties to produce those mail-in ballot envelopes with the signatures on them. It's been quite an interesting fight. We went to the Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania, and they refused to rule. They said, well, the Commonwealth only makes suggestions to the counties, and then they run their elections. So you're going to have to hear this in the county court. So we went to the county court and the common pleas, and they refused to hear the case. They have not heard the case. It's been almost a year and a couple of weeks that they've refused to hear that case. But what they did instead was they provided us the mail-in ballots with the signatures. We were allowed to photograph one of the elections. We photographed 26,000 mail-in ballot envelopes for the May 2023 election. And those are available on mibdb.org. The next interview, I'll send you an update. I didn't think we had time today to do a screen share,
Right.
but we'll be showing people how to do this and verify that they were the ones that voted and didn't vote and so forth. We've already got a substantial number of people that we've tested the mibdb.org site with that have said, that's not my signature. That's not my mail-in ballot. I did not vote, or I voted in person, or I didn't vote by mail-in ballot, or I voted, but my mail-in ballot's not there. So we've already found a substantial number of discrepancies. We know the mail-in ballot envelopes, a substantial number of them are fake. We know a substantial number of them have been processed outside of the centralized counting centers. And we have a mountain of evidence, which we've entered into the courts. You can go to www.patriot.online, and right at the top, there's a thing that says election resources. You can click there and then go in and you can see all of our cases that we filed. And we've got cases currently before the courts challenging these situations.
Okay, so wow, this shows
that's mibdb.org, right? So if you don't have a login, just click on Pennsylvania for now. Click on Pennsylvania. Just click on it, and then scroll down to Delaware County, because that's got most of the images. We have all the data for all mail-in ballot applications across the state now. Select. Now you're gonna have to verify who you are. Confirm. There'll be a little pop-up. I'm human. Sign in. You might have to.
Oh, okay.
Bigger than an adult. I think an elephant's bigger than an adult. So you click on the elephants.
Okay.
I think those are all bigger. Hit OK. Should verify you. Sign in. Okay. So just go up to the search bar there and just put in Smith.
Smith. Okay.
I'm checking my name. I think we have a few Smiths.
Okay.
Well, there you go. Now you can scroll over to the right on the bottom. Anything that's gray, we have a mail-in ballot for. So let's take that the third one from the top, because that one seems to be a good one. And hit gallery. Just hit gallery. And these are the mail-in ballot applications we have for this person. Brenda Smith lives in Lansdowne, Pennsylvania. So this is her mail-in ballot envelope from last year in the May election, dated 04/24/2023. Click the button to the right. Just so there's a little, there you go. Now this is her mail-in ballot envelope from November of 2022. Go to the right again. Now this is her mail-in ballot from 2023 for November. and then go to the right again. This is her mail-in ballot for this past election. And we just got the upload, 29,000 mail-in ballots, which is curious because they only said there were 26,000 people that voted by mail-in ballot, and they gave us 29,000 images. But nevertheless, this is her image. Now, scroll to the left again. Look at the numbers. See the 2024 and the 04. Let's just go to the right again because we have a gallery. Let's just go to the right. Keep going to the right. Okay, now that's a comparison between her May 2023 mail-in ballot and her November 2022 mail-in ballot envelope. Now, the signatures look pretty good. Let's go to the right again. This is an overlay of her signatures. Looks, pretty good. Looks like they're correct. Go to the next screen. This is a comparison again, and go to the next screen. I'm looking to see, we probably don't have a mail-in ballot. Okay, let's close this one.
Okay.
Just hit the X at the top.
So she looks legit, would you say? Or?
She looks legit. There's some down here. Let's scroll down. Go to that one from Haverford near the bottom. It looks and click on the go the third one from the bottom. Click on that one. That one looks like a good one. In fact, I haven't prepared for this, but This right here is a photograph right here of the 2023 May 2023 election from Margaret Smith. Now let's go to the right. There's the mail-in ballot from 2023. That's the one they sent to us, and the image they sent to us. Go to the right. This is her ballot from November of 2022. Go to the right. This is her ballot from November of 2023. Go to the right. Now this here is very interesting, and I want you to look at this. This is a photograph that we took. On the left, one of the 26,000 mail-in ballot envelopes we took a picture of. And on the right is an image from the Blue Crest mail sorter that processed this and received this mail-in ballot envelope when it was received. Now, if you look at the left upper hand side on the photograph, you'll see a date time group. See the 050823?
Right.
What's very interesting about that is that date time group imprint did not come from a Blue Crest sorter. And we can prove that.
Wow.
So one of the things that they're really scratching their head at, and the reason they haven't heard the suit, is we can prove irrefutably that the envelope on the left was not processed in the election center, the centralized election center. We can prove that. We know what the imprint is that the Blue Crest sorter makes, and it does a different date time group. And if you sort through this and you read our lawsuits, we show the imprints that Blue Crest sorters should make and the imprints that other mail sorters make. We can prove this mail-in ballot on the left was processed outside of the centralized counting center. Now, whether Margaret Smith is, a real or not real voter, and it looks like, looking at her signature and things are, look good in the up and up, I would say that this is probably an envelope that Margaret Smith signed. The question is, for the envelope on the left, why was that not processed in the centralized counting center?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And we know why, and we're filing the lawsuits. It's so they could create false CVRs. And that's getting a little bit too complicated for this call. But the bottom line is the envelope on the left was not processed through our centralized counting center, despite the testimony by the Board of Elections Director, Jim Allen, who lied and stated that it was. He stated that all mail-in ballots go through the Blue Crest sorter and are managed and canvassed and sorted in the centralized counting center. That is a lie, and we can prove it. And they're not responding because we can prove it. And we know why they're doing it, but that's a perfect example of what we've gotten. On the left-hand side, you'll notice the orange, for people who are not colorblind, there's a bunch of orange slashes on the bottom right. You see them in the vertical on the photo?
Hold on. I lost the...
Yeah. Just move on from that. You can close.
I did see that. Yeah, they're like orange lines.
That
Yeah.
shows us that it went through I think there was one on the bottom. I'm not sure which one it was. But what that showed us was that it went through the U.S. Postal Service.
Okay.
Another big issue with mail-in ballots is dropping them into drop boxes is a huge vector for fraud. We've all seen videos of drop boxes being stuffed by election officials, unknown people, and we've seen them being stuffed into these drop boxes. Now, there's no reason for drop boxes at all. It was not part of Act 77. There's no reason for them. In fact, there's a heck of a lot more U.S. Postal Service mailboxes than there are drop boxes. For the state of Pennsylvania, Delaware County had over 40% of all drop boxes, and we still do. We have over 40. We have, I think, 38 now, but during 2020, I think we had 44 or 46. In November of 2022, we had 40. I think we have 38 now. And these drop boxes are a huge vector for fraud that we're working on stopping. So, that mibdb.org is a very important tool. You just used it. It's a little, we have an instruction manual, but if someone sees a problem, we have a button there that they can click on and, report a problem, and then we'll get them an affidavit and have them file their affidavit. But using that tool and the mail-in ballot application challenging, in fact, you still have it up there, Richard? Just bring that up real quick.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I want to show one other thing here. And you can just put in Smith again. It may not let you, because we only let, it's there. Just click advanced view for any one of them. Hopefully this is, nope, that doesn't have it. And a large number of them, and it may not be this database. Go back. You may be running out of clicks. So wait, hold on. Click on menu at the top in the middle, like top left. Click on menu. Go to the right. Yep, just go to menu, the top right there. And then click on where it says year. Oh, you got 2024. Click on label. Leave that there. Label. Oh, okay. Just leave that. We had the right database. Some of the people, what we found is a large number of people voted in one election and then didn't vote the other. But go to that advanced view again. Click down in the middle somewhere. Just in the middle there. Just pick Robert R. Smith on Mole Road. You see that one down there? Go to the right on the screen on the bottom.
Let me just close this.
Okay.
Robert.
Right.
Okay. Robert.
You can pick anyone and just go to the right on the screen, because I want you to click on that advanced view. There you go. Advanced view. There. One more. I'm hoping you don't run out of clicks. Okay, what we have here, and some of them are more complete than others, but for people that registered to vote in the 2024 election, registered for mail-in ballot applications, we have all of their data and all of their history, their voting history. This is one of the ones we don't. So Patricia A. Smith, she voted in, what we've done is we've got 2022 ballots for her and 2023. We don't have a 2024 mail-in ballot for her. But what we've done is we've integrated the real estate databases for the state. We know what homes have bedrooms, which don't. We can tell how many, if there's 20 voters registered at one location, or they're registered at a retail, location or a ballpark. We know that. We have a national change of address database that we've integrated into this. We have a number of different databases that have been included in MibDB, where we can rapidly figure out which mail-in ballot applications need to be challenged, and it's quite a few. So you can close that now. It's probably been a little bit boring for people, but you can close that out. And but you can see it's a pretty thorough database. We have most of the registered voters for Delco, and we have registered voters for all the counties. So if people, click their own county up in Pike County, you can click Pike County and find your neighbors there. And some people are concerned about privacy, but there's a U.S. Supreme Court case, Doe v. Reed, Doe versus Reed in Washington State, that basically they said any petition mail-in ballot envelope, anything to do with a public record can be viewed. And your signature is not private on a public attestation regarding a vote. All your other materials are basically private, but your signature is not. And that was a decision by the Supreme Court. And the claims of violations of privacy are unfounded. We should absolutely have transparency into our elections, and we've worked really hard at that. So what I want to give people hope and let's let them know is that we've addressed this illegal alien issue, and I believe it's a distraction, and it's meant to foment unnecessary hate and unnecessary angst towards illegal aliens who are just, in this case, in the elections, they're just innocent. They're literally, most of them are innocents. They came in. I don't want to go over the open border issues and the fact that they're here in the first place, but the chances of them voting are near nil as long as the counties are forced and made to comply with federal and state law. So I think we beat that one to death. And, I hopefully, do you have any more questions specifically on the mail-in ballots or what we're doing to make sure that only valid mail-in ballots get counted?
Now, my understanding is that I think it was the Supreme Court which said that the signature on the outside of the envelope has to match the signature.
Yes, it must. Their mail-in when they register to vote, their signature is put into the voter registration system for the state, the SURE system,
Right.
And those signatures are printed out in what they call blue books. That most people that's what they sign when they go in to vote. So their signature is there. And what the Pennsylvania Supreme Court did, I'm going to say wrongly, it's not compliant with law. And again, we'll be addressing that in the federal courts going forward, is the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, which I believe is a highly partisan, activist, leftist court, has ruled a number of abhorrent rulings to the law, saying that you don't have to verify signatures. That's ridiculous. They're required to verify the voter. They do so in most of the other states, except for here in Pennsylvania. So what happens for poll watchers, and people are concerned about illegal aliens in particular, the first time you vote in a county, you must present identification, photo identification.
Right.
And while they're not supposed to verify your signature, that won't stop me or a certified poll watcher from challenging that vote. We can challenge that person. Okay. And we don't need a reason to challenge them. Okay. So it's a little finer point of the law, but if we find a voter that we question, we can reasonably challenge that vote, and that vote will be set aside until the challenge can be adjudicated. Now that has to be done with very within very specific guidelines. Our intent is not to stop legal voting. We want everyone to vote. The focus has got to be on culling out illegal votes. And some people, I'm going to just say one more thing about this. There's 428 precincts in Delaware County. And what I saw in 2016, and we got notification of, is there was a group of bad actors that were driving around in a van, going from precinct to precinct with a carload of people, and they were giving them names of people that had voted previously, so they didn't need an ID, and then they were voting for people that hadn't voted. And we knew this. We got a heads up. Phone calls came in, says, "Hey, there's a white man driving around," and 428 precincts. If you figure 2 or 3 illegal votes, let's call it 2 per precinct. There you go. You got 800 and what's 28 times 2? 56. You got 856 illegal votes
Right.
Elections are decided by one vote, never mind 826. So
Right.
even stopping one or two people per poll from illegally voting is a huge impact. That's one of the reasons we need poll watchers. In 2020, excuse me, in 2016, excuse me, in 2012, when Mitt Romney was running against Obama, we had less than 200 poll watchers for 428 precincts, less than 200. In 2016, we had almost 1,000, and it made a huge difference. I was one of them. These were people who were trained. We were ready to go out. There were 1,000 of us going out over 428 polls. And although I think Trump lost to Clinton here, he didn't lose by much. It was more like, 650. In my precinct, it was 650 votes, which was heavily Democrat for Clinton, and roughly 450 for Trump in the precinct that I was watching over. Whereas in previous elections, would have been 1,000 for Hillary. There was a whole bunch of different problems during that election that the poll watchers sorted out. So I really want people to think if they want to act and they want to do something, to volunteer to be poll watchers and learn. They're not there to, enforce the law. They're there to report and challenge and observe. And I think if we can get people out there that know what they're looking at, then we can make a really big impact on illegal voting in general in the 2024 election.
Okay. I mean, there is this issue of mail-in ballots, which I don't have any impact on what happens. I mean, thank God that you have you set up the technology to see if the signatures match or see where it was counted.
Yeah, well, we have with the mail-in ballots, and we're just stay on them for just a couple more minutes. There's a few more points I want to make on the mail-in ballots because they are the hot button right now. And the question is, how do they cheat with mail-in ballots? And what they do is the vector for cheating is centralized counting centers.
Right.
And the centralized counting centers are not due to Act 77. A lot of people have been falsely led or misled to believe that all these things came from Act 77, and they didn't. They were manufactured. I've said it before. There's 3,143 counties in the United States. Every single vote counts, but there's several pivot counties, 20 to 32, depending on the election. Everyone's heard of a swing state. There are swing counties.
Right.
And what they did in 2020 is they focused on the key pivot counties and they installed centralized counting centers. Right. Now, those centralized counting centers were, quote unquote, for our safety and our security during the coronavirus.
Right.
What we've learned over the past couple of years, and specifically over the last couple of months, as we've been able to get the state and counties and federal government to disgorge information, public records through right to know requests and through FOIA requests. What we've learned is that the Blue Crest sorters and the mail run-back mail sorters and the centralized counting centers were developed in Danbury, Connecticut, long before the election. As a matter of fact, what we found, and I did combat systems for a long time for the military, and there's no combat system that's deployed that doesn't have a mock-up. We always have a test center. So if anybody's been in a centralized counting center or seen videos, you've seen Philadelphia or Georgia or Maricopa, Delaware County, they've seen this huge orchestration of machinery, mail-in ballot sorters, the Blue Crest sorters on one side of the room, and then the envelope slicers in the middle of the room, and then scanners that scan the ballots. And there's this whole kabuki theater going on. Well, that didn't just emanate out of thin air. These Blue Cross sorters and these centers just popped up starting in August, September, and October of the 2020 election. There was a mad dash. The CTCL, the Zuckerbucks, Center for Tech and Civic Life,
right.
put out $440 million. 90% of that $440 million went to only 20 counting centers.
Wow.
90%. And they focused on these counting centers, and they popped out of nowhere. I says, how the heck did they know to get the Philadelphia Convention Center, the Atlanta Convention Center,
Right.
the Wharf Building in Delaware County? I mean, they got these huge locations, and they got all of this sophisticated equipment installed in a period of a few weeks. Well, as a combat systems guy, I looked at it and I said, well, they had to develop that somewhere,
Right.
in some location. So the question is, when did they do it? I want you to think about this for a minute. If the centralized counting centers were put in for our safety,
right,
during Corona, then
right.
they must have been developed after Corona. What we found
Yeah.
is the opposite.
Sure.
First came the litigation that allowed no excuse mail-in ballots first. We also have proven, and we have evidence, that these centralized counting centers were tested and developed before Corona.
Right.
So which came first, the chicken or the egg? Corona and then the centralized counting centers, or the centralized counting centers and the plan to steal the election and then Corona? Well, the answer is obvious.
Right.
They
right.
knew before the Corona pandemic that they were going to do centralized counting and that they were going to use mail-in ballots and they were going to steal the election. And we can prove that. One of the things that we found, just from a mechanical perspective, if people can't buy that and people just have a problem, well, that's all conjecture and you can't prove it, even though we can prove the Blue Cross sorters and the mail-in ballots and the centralized counting centers were developed before Corona. We can prove that.
Right.
But if you can't manage that, then what we've done, and we file litigation that they can go to www.patriot.online, go to election resources, and they can click on, Schwartz versus Delaware County, which I'm also a co-plaintiff on, and Leah Hoopes is. They can click on some of our lawsuits. And what we show there with photographic evidence is that in May of 2023, and in this most recent election in April of 2024, there were less mail-in ballots on the floor that were counted. In May 2023, they only had 10,000 mail-in ballots on the floor. We counted them.
Okay.
So if there was 10,000 in 2023, well, at the end of the day, they said there were 25,000. In April, we counted, and this is 5 different people, 4 of which are engineers. We counted less than 15,000 mail-in ballots on the floor. We have photographs. We have pictures of all the racks, everything that they counted, all the machines. We record 24/7 video, which they've turned off. And just this past week, they turned off the 24/7 video we have of the counting. We can show that there were only 15,000 mail-in ballots. Yet at 8 p.m. when they reported the vote, voila, there were 26,000. Well, where did the other 10,000 votes come from? Mm-hmm. We know where they came from. And they came from the CVRs, and we're going to explain that in our coming federal suit.
CVR is cast vote record.
Cast vote records, yeah, the digital records from the scanners.
Right.
We know what they're doing, how they're doing it, and how they're cheating.
So these are fake cast vote records that
are presumably created from the scanned mail-in ballots.
Right.
There's a complete disconnect from what they're scanning and the ballots they're processing and then what they're actually putting up and reporting. It's a complete disconnect. Yeah. So for people that are having a hard time believing this, I'll summarize it. In April, just a few weeks ago, April 23rd in Delaware County, there were less than 15,000 mail-in ballots on the floor.
Okay.
The mail-in ballots are sitting in boxes. and we can count the number of mail-in ballots per box. And then we, look at all the racks. There were 4 racks there with these boxes of mail-in ballots. Right. And we know, I counted about a little less than 9,000. One of the engineers said, well, I think there might be more. I think there might be 12 or 13,000. But all of us agreed it was somewhere between, 9,000 and 12 or 13,000. So we said, let's just go with 15,000. Will everybody here agree that there's only 15,000 mail-in ballots on the floor? And it was a consensus. We're all standing there, all engineers, and we said, okay, does everybody believe there's less than 15,000 mail-in ballots on the floor being processed here? Yes. Okay, let's wait until 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, well, it's actually it was 8:05 or 8:10. Boom, the results go up on the screen. 26,000. It's actually 25,000 something, but 26,000. And for some of the newbie, some of us had been doing this for a while, and were there in April and November and already knew what was going to happen. We just clucked our tongues and said, well, for the newbies, the people who had just come and they were learning, they were just floored, jaws open. They said, how did they get 26,000 mail-in ballots? I said, okay, now go ask the election director if we can go to the observation area in the back and try to do a count, because they put the mail-in ballot envelopes in the back of the room.
Right.
At the end of the day. So he says, now go and see if they'll let you go look at them. No, we're not going to let you see them, because they know we're counting and they know they're caught and the lawsuits are in. We filed criminal charges just in the past 2 weeks against the director of elections, filed criminal charges, criminal referrals. We know how they do it.
Okay, you are a private citizen.
Yeah.
You're able to file a criminal. Don't you need a district attorney to do that, or
you can file criminal referrals? You can file criminal charges as a private citizen. And the big thing is they're required to investigate. The district attorney, the Pennsylvania Attorney General, the Inspector General of Pennsylvania, and the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern, Middle, and Western Districts of Pennsylvania are all required by law to conduct an investigation. What they've done the past few years is they've dodged that. And the way they dodged it was they said, well, we chose, our prosecutorial discretion was not to prosecute. I said, okay, that's fine. They're actually allowed by law to do that. They're allowed to use their prosecutorial discretion to not prosecute. What they're not allowed to do is not investigate. So what they did is they conflated investigation with discretion. Says, hey, look discretion, we'll fight that corruption and that fraud another day.
Right.
You are required to do an investigation. Where is it? Well, we don't have it. Yeah, we know you don't have it because we know you didn't do the investigation. You broke the law. These are the cases that we're bringing forward into the federal courts, and we're making President Trump aware of, so he can make the public aware of them at his rallies. And he can say, look, we know these things to be true. We know they're using centralized counting centers to subvert the vote. We know they're using mail-in ballots to subvert the vote. We know exactly how they're doing it. And the solution is just to make them comply with law. Now, where this is really important for, Pike County as an example, where a lot of your listeners are out of, every county counts, because our premise is that there are honest people. We have a lot of honest judges. Hopefully most judges are honest. They're not all crooked. Most DAs, I think, are honest. I hope they are. We have a lot of good people. Our premise, and the whole reason we're doing this, is because we know there are good people. And that in a county like Pike or Greene or Butler or Center or Carbon County in Pennsylvania, where they may or may not be a hotbed for fraud, an honest judge and an honest candidate can say, look, I want to do a recount. You know, we have a centralized counting center. They've been installed all over the state in the last few years. Say, well, look, we want to do a recount, and we want to do logic and accuracy testing, and we want to look at these envelopes, and we want a reconciliation. An honest judge, an honest DA, that is the downfall of the corrupt criminals who have stolen our elections. Because if they do it in Pike County, for example, and they say, hey, let's take, do you have centralized counting center in Pike? I'm not sure.
I believe it's in the administration building. They count the mail-in ballots at the administration building, and you can watch them open up the envelopes and scan the ballots. So you can watch that. Yes.
And hopefully it's an honest, this is why people, the cognitive dissonance people are having is because in most counties in the country, I believe most counties in the country are honest. So a lot of people are going, where's all this election fraud? I don't see it.
Right.
Well, what we want and what has to happen is we have to have 3,143 counties. If 200 of them will do counts and do recounts to say, hey, everything's fine here. Pike County may come out great. Hey, they did the logic and accuracy testing correctly. They ran the election honestly. We did a recount afterwards. We did a full reconciliation, and everything's perfect. Everything adds up. We had an honest election here. Or maybe they didn't. We'll find out. So the question's going to be, and the question to a citizen should be, why won't they do that in Delaware County? Why won't they do it in Philadelphia County? They refuse. They're fighting us tooth and nail. They won't do a recount. They won't allow them. They do what they call RLAs, risk limiting audits, which are useless. And the inventor of risk limiting audits said they're useless. And as a matter of fact, it's congressional testimony that the Dominion machines, hardened to Civic, ES&S, which are the bulk of the election systems in the country, they cannot do a risk limiting audit with the Dominion machines or hardened to Civic. They can't even do them. So they're doing this fairy tale, and they're making people believe, oh, look, we're auditing, we're recounting. No, you're not. You've done no observed recounts. You haven't released any public records which we can compare and audit those recounts. You won't do it. And the only place that they won't do it is in corrupt counties. So what the rest of the state needs to look at, the 67 counties, your vote in Pike County and the votes in the smaller counties, Butler County, Greene County, I mentioned some of the counties, Carbon County, Center County. These are smaller counties. Everybody's vote should count the same as the votes here in Delaware County. Delaware County shouldn't decide the entire state, even though we have, a large number of voters. We have 430,000 registered voters. We have 4 to 10 times more registered voters in one county than the rest of the counties in the state. Philadelphia County and Allegheny, Pittsburgh, obviously being larger. But legislators, district attorneys, and citizens in other counties should say, hey, wait a minute, we did our count, we did our reconciliation, everything's kosher here. Why aren't you doing logic and accuracy testing and testing all your machines in Delaware County? The law says we have to test every single machine. We did it in Pike County. We verified that the software was good. We watched and we made sure we challenged illegal mail-in ballots. We, made challenges. We were allowed to canvass. We watched our board of elections, dutifully, and honestly count the votes. We watched them. They let us watch them, unlike Delaware County, which is done mostly in secret. And then afterwards, we did a recount, and everything came out fine. So what would be the only reason Delaware County and Chester County and Fayette County and Montgomery County and Philadelphia County, and Allegheny County, which decides the trajectory of our elections in Pennsylvania and the national elections, why won't those counties and why won't specific district attorneys installed with George Soros money and specific judges, always the same ones, always the same ones in these specific counties, Why won't they allow you to do this? Good question.
Right.
We're going to find out.
It'd be helpful if you could make like a list of we did a recount in Pike County of two precincts, but you're talking about a more detailed looking at a chain of custody. I'm sure there if you could make a list of the things that a real recount, a real audit would be looking at and send it out or post it
Happy.
on.
I'll send you a summary.
Yeah.
I'll get you a summary in the lawsuit. The ones that were most recently filed, and we're now in the Commonwealth Court and the Supreme Court for recounts in Delaware County, Chester County, and Fayette County. We're in the Pennsylvania Commonwealth Court in the appellate courts now. We have basically, it's a little longer, but we have several pages. I think the filings are 12 to 17 pages. They're not too hard to read. But what we explain is that I'm just going to cite statutes, and I don't expect anybody to be taking notes. But Pennsylvania law, the body of law is not that big. It's not Pennsylvania, law, election law is meant to be simple. Right. These aren't complex trusts, family trusts. They're not, complex real estate. Certainly there's lawyers that specialize in very complex areas of the law. Election law is not complex. Right. Paragraph 3261 and 3262 in the Pennsylvania Election Code, 3261, 3262, say that anyone can request a recount if they suspect fraud or errors. And they don't have to provide a reason. Say, look at, something's not quite right. That's enough of a reason to ask for a recount. What the judges, corrupt judges, have done is they've superseded federal and state law, which requires the judges to open the ballot box. And they said, well, we think you should comply with 3263. Now, paragraph 3263 requires prima facie evidence of fraud. And what we found over the last 3 years, is it doesn't matter if we show videos of election officials.
Right. You have video. I just want our audience to know that you actually have videos of election officials bragging about violating the law, destroying election records. I think we have to finish for today, but people can go to patriot.online to get more information. Any other contact information that you want to leave with us, or?
My email is gregorystenstrom@gmail.com. www.patriot.online. There's a wealth of information. You can look up Leah Hoopes is a prolific Twitter, Rumbler, and I believe what's the other one? Telegram. She posts all this stuff. Leah Hoopes, you can look her up. We went way over my intent and my hope. We were going to do this in 15 minutes, but you get into it and it never takes 15.
Yeah, once you go down this rabbit hole, it's hard.
Yeah. But if I could close with one thing, I know one of the things I want people, and I always try to end this because I know a good part of your listener database. One of the reasons I love to be here is the godly aspects of this. And what I'd like to close with is the power of science is not greater than the power of God and his creations. And he's anticipated all of this. He anticipated evil men. He anticipated Corona. And he gave us the strength to resist evil and we have a duty to do that. And I think that all things are possible through God. And it's a big reason that I continue doing what I'm doing. And I want people here to really take hope and take faith and do what they're supposed to do. You're supposed to vote. You have a duty to vote. Right. You have a duty to stand up. You have a duty to say no to evil. You can't just let it go by and say, well, God will take care of that. He put you there, and you're there for you to take care of it. And I want people to know that that God's in charge, and he knows he's given us the abilities to fix all these things. What we have broken, we can fix. And I want to leave people with that hope and and that hopefully godly close, that
Right.
that all things are possible through God.
Well, thank you, Gregory. We're big fans of you and Leah, and we really pray for your victory in your lawsuits, and pray for victory in the 2024 presidential election.
We'll get there. We'll do shorter next time, Richard. We'll get.
Okay, all right.
We'll do the short. We'll keep working on it. I'm sorry, I
All right.
keep going. So thank you very much for your patience and your
Right.
listeners' patience. And I always love the opportunity to come here. Thank you.
Right. All right.